equipped marketers with anticipated consumer behavior shifts and effectively planned for reach through the changing VOD, SVOD, and BVOD landscape. While we are meeting in a virtual capacity today, we would like to begin by acknowledging the Indigenous lands in which we are so grateful to live, work, and play. From coast to coast, we acknowledge the ancestral and unceded territory of the Inuit, Métis, and First Nations people that call this nation home. We must reaffirm our commitment to improving relationships between nations and to respecting local Indigenous people and cultures. We hope that you will engage with us on social media during the webinar. Don't forget to tag us at CDN Marketing on social media and use the hashtag CMA events. This virtual experience will be available as a recording and sent to everybody in a post-event email. I will also share any presentations that we're able to share as well in that post-event email. I can see so many people signing in today. It's going to be a great event, but I just like to take a quick minute while people are still signing in to give you an update on some of our upcoming events. On January 12th, we have CMA Ideas presented by Salesforce. On January 26th, we have CMA Insights, our annual event, a big hit. So hopefully join us to that virtual event on Jan 26th. And then on March 23rd, we have the Human Experience in-person event. And again, at any point in time, if you want any updates on our calendar, and we do have a good part of our 2023 calendar up on our website, just go to the cma.ca/events, and you can check out all of our programs coming up. We are going to be doing Q&A only at the very end of the program today. So please look at the bottom of your screen and you will see a Q&A prompt, and that's where you can click and send us any questions, and we'll get to those at the very end of the event. So let's get started. Please let's have a big virtual applause for our first presenter, Laura Chivey from Roku, who will dive into the Roku research on the VOD evolution. Laura, how are you doing?
Hi, Lucy. Thank you so much. It's really great to be here with all of you today.
Okay.
I'm now going to share my screen. So one moment, sound is on, and hopefully we will be in full presentation mode. One moment. And full screen. Can I just check, Lucy? Everyone can see full screen?
Looks great.
Okay, thanks. Well, welcome everyone. Season's greetings. We know we are competing with football, but this is a recorded session, and we hope for those who aren't able to make it, they'll be able to circle back. We're going to start just with a little bit of a video, and just to say, this video is actually, the highlights of it is based on the research. So let's start here.
There it is. When does it start? It just did.
Right. Thank you, everyone. We've got three parts to the webinar today over the next 1.5 hours. I'll be going through a whistle stop of our VOD Evolution research. We'll then be moving on to Dr. Grace, who is from Magic Numbers, and she will be covering what TV can do for brands, specifically brands that have online presence, and importantly, the impact on, for example, sales. And then we'll be wrapping with a panel discussion. And I'm really excited today because we have an amazing lineup of very seasoned experts from the Canadian market, in the panel, and Nick will introduce all of our panelists for the third part of our session. So what are we going to cover in the research? So as I said, there's 3 parts. And at this point, we're going to ask a little question. First off, in 2023, are your TV marketing plans going to be increasing, decreasing, staying the same, or is your company actually not spending on any TV advertising at this moment? We'll give you a few moments to answer. I'm going to say my answer. So over the course of the research, while we're waiting for people to make a little bit of a vote, what we'll be covering is what's happening with the landscape of VOD, the market sizing. I'm also going to cover definitions. Okay. Wow, 40% look like they're going to increase. You must be the reason why you're on the call today for the research. Thank you for your feedback. So we'll be going over specifically what is in the VOD landscape. It's a very exciting space. And I think up to now, what people call AVOD, SVOD, BVOD, there's a lot more under the hood. And I'll be going through that in the definitions. We'll then touch on what's going on with consumers. And listen, there's an amazing amount of research already out in the market about what's going on in streaming. There's like 10-year tracking studies. This will really be focusing on mood set and mindset and understanding what's happening with Canadians right now as we go into 2023, and particularly what modern day life tensions are people facing and the impact that might have on your creative strategy when you're coming into streaming or TV advertising. And then finally, I'll wrap up with some advertising solutions. So we don't just want to leave you with a bunch of stats and facts. We actually also want to point you in the direction of when you're creating your goals, your metrics as marketers, what does success look like? What is the ceiling of, behaviors that people have on how they engage with advertising? And Dr. Grace will come on to show you some amazing case studies of how other brands can show the impact of why they're keeping TV on their plans, particularly as we're heading into a tough 2023. And so moving on, hold on, let me just get my cursor working 1 second. Okay, so just to start off, what is the size of the market in Canada? So this is based on Ampere analysis. They were the keynote at the Future of TV Advertising. They're a well-known analyst company that does a lot of market sizing data. They size the internet universe in Canada at 28.8 million internet users in Canada. Why do we use an internet base? For streaming, you have to have, ideally, a broadband connection in order to access TV. They put that there's roughly 23.1 million Canadians, and this is age 18 to 64, who are accessing streaming TV. And this is specifically streaming TV on a TV set. So throughout the course of this presentation, when you're looking at numbers, please know that the numbers are always focused on what are people doing with a TV set. Of course, in where there's some other areas, you are accessing perhaps on your mobile or on your laptop, but the purpose of this presentation is really what's going on with that big screen in the living room. And that equates to roughly 9.3 million households where there's at least one TV streamer in the household. Hold on. So what is VOD? And in fact, even in the research, when we did this, people were like, well, what is Roku? I know like you can get it on your TV. Roku itself is actually a combination of VOD where you can have a device that you connect to a TV to make it smart, like a streaming stick or a sound bar. It's TVs that actually have an operating system that make the TV smart, and Roku is the operating system. You can see for the brands on the right-hand side. So if you purchase one of those TVs, you don't necessarily have to connect a set-top box or a device. You can go straight into the operating system of the TV to access streaming content. And as well, it's a combination of channels. They may be live, they may be on demand. We'll come on to talk about what those are, or even fast channels, which is a combination of it. Looks like it's a live channel, but really it's curated channels that are non-live, but they look like they're schedules. And this is also a very interesting area because it's growing in Canada. And what do we know then about the evolution of VOD? Well, according to our research, 76% of those surveyed, and we did survey streamers and non-streamers. It was a sample of over 2,000 people and a 20-minute survey. 76% of Canadian internet users said that they are streaming TV on a TV set. They also told us 29% that actually they've never had cable, and this rises to over 30% for those of the under 35s. And in the next 12 months, people who do have cable are looking at considering changing their services. So what does this all mean? There's a lot of changing behavior, and as marketers, we're here to try and help you understand what does that mean for you and your business, because you have campaigns and you have brands and you have a portfolio likely, and you still need to reach your addressable target audience. So what is VOD? As I said, for Roku, it's the devices, the operating system, and content. But when you get into the actual media and services layer, there are lots of things going on under the hood. And we've just published a blog, so I won't like dig into all the details, but when you hear me say these words, you at least understand what, from a Roku point of view, do we mean is video on demand. So it's subscription, it's broadcaster video on demand. AVOD is ad supported. Premium is, for example, if you rent a movie while it's still in the cinema, but you're accessing it home on your TV. For example, during COVID, Trolls World Tour, you could rent for $20 to $30 while it should have been in the cinema, but while it was in the cinema. Language VOD, this is a very exciting area. I'm going to spend some time on this specifically for Canada because of the multicultural nature of the market. There's a lot going on here, and we're going to unpack that. Transactional VOD, you might have done a UFC fight, or there are some just one-off transactions where you want to access content, and it's typically premium, often live. Music, this is not to be underestimated. You can also access Spotify and Apple Music through the Roku platform. It is also a form of streaming that people are spending time on. While I won't touch on podcasts, certainly, this is also part of the streaming landscape. And then an interesting one, seasonal VOD. So for all of you sports lovers out there who might be wanting to follow Blue Jays or Major League Baseball, sometimes you're probably accessing a pass that will go in line with the sporting season, and then you may come off of it. So this is the ecosystem. There's established cable, and over the air is just the aerial cable, so you're not necessarily paying for any services. And then finally, other video, we're calling throughout this deck online video. So these are the likes of YouTube, Twitch, TikTok, where they might be accessed on a TV set. So what does this look like? This is the landscape. And what you really need to know is that 93% of consumers in Canada are using SVOD, as well as obviously cable, over-the-air online video. The growing area, though, is streaming TV that is ad supported, with 52% of Canadians saying that they have accessed this kind of content. And I showed you the long tail of all of those other kinds of VOD services that people are accessing. So this is the fragmented VOD landscape. On average, streamers have 3.4 TV streaming services, and this is the reach of what they have ever used. So when you're thinking about the kinds of services and the business partnerships that you're making, including like with a company with Roku, this is what the reach is forever for these types of services. And when it comes to the recency, what Canadians are saying is roughly 42% of Canadians have accessed ad-supported TV streaming in the last month, which is this big circle here. Language VOD, 16% have also accessed that, for example. Where is it all going, though? What we're seeing is that from Q1 2021, again, based on Amper data, is that all of the major broadcasters really started to ramp up and invest in broadcaster video on demand content, so that by Q3 2022, 30% of consumers here have said that they're catching up broadcaster video on demand content. What else is growing is this interesting area where, for example, the Roku channel sits under advertiser video on demand content. And as we see premium grow, the great news here is for marketers, piracy is starting to wane away because the distribution channels are opening up. And what we're also seeing is we'll likely see some volatility of subscription video on demand, and I'm going to come on to that. And over time, as more premium content opens up through broadcast channels and TV, we're starting to see online video services start to wane over a long period of time. So what does this all mean, though? Where is it going? What we expect to see is in the next 12 months, 47% of streamers who stream on TV said they're likely to make some sort of change to their services. So whether they upgrade, switch, downgrade, cancel, subscribe, there's going to be a lot of movement, and I'm calling it the rise of the flexi VODs. Why? They're flexing, not necessarily because they're chopping and changing services because they want to. It's because also we know that the business models are changing, and there's a lot of experimentation going on in the market. So if you think about this, this is roughly 11 million streamers that are potentially making changes to their service. So if you thought it was dynamic, expect even more going into 2023. What does this all mean? Of course, the younger audiences are quite fickle. They do follow the content. What the main thing that you need to know though is, like with companies like Roku, we focus on the complexity so you don't have to. And because we have a first party logged in environment, what it means is we can see when consumers come in and out of different statuses between subscription, broadcaster, or advertising to try and maximize your opportunity to reach consumers through our platform, for example. And what it looks like is 1 in 7 streamers might be going from pay to free services. This is what we're seeing as what they're telling us they'll be doing. But why have I called this VOD Evolutions with a bracket S? Is because this is coming full circle. All of the major broadcasters and their live channels are also coming into the streaming environment. And what we're really seeing is a revolution with a technology shift. The great upside about all of this is better advertising opportunities for all of you who are joining us on the call. In fact, 49% of streamers have said not only are they watching on demand, but they're also watching live TV streaming services through their platforms. And this is up from 30% in 2020. All of this means more opportunities for marketers to be able to reach brands with your brand's consumers in dynamic ways, including eventually dynamic ad insertion. And we're going to come on to talk about technology. So the summary point is that over the course of a week, on average, streamers are telling us they're spending roughly 5 hours a week with ad video on demand supported content and broadcaster video on demand content. And from a Roku point of view, this is great. 62% say they also intend to watch even more AVOD services in the next 12 months. We know which companies are coming into this ecosystem with ad supported opportunities. And where does it all go? What this means is, as a marketer, all TV is likely to be streamed, and what that means is all ads will be streamed with it. This is an upside for you because there's great technology underneath it. And I say CTV is the marriage between digital and TV. We've got the brains of digital technology, but also the great editorial control, premium quality of what you would expect from a living room TV screen to communicate with. So where is it all going? Well, consumers. This is just a profile of all of the people that we surveyed, just to give it a baseline. What we are seeing in streaming is, while there are obviously more French people than what you see on what is profile, French people overall are not necessarily being well served within the streaming community. We have also launched a lot more French options within Roku, but I think there's still more to be done. And what's really interesting is, remember, 24% of streamers said they're accessing language video on demand services. So what does this mean for languages? What was really surprising, and this is refreshing actually for those of you who are close to streaming TV technologies, is subtitles are actually a higher percentage of people viewing their viewing experience than foreign language programs than dubbed. Now, from a production point of view, even if you're making your own ads, dubbed can sometimes be 10 times more expensive than subtitles, but the beauty of subtitles is part of a technical infrastructure that helps make advertising environments smarter. So this is actually a really great shift. And when we talk foreign, whether it's Korean dramas, Turkish, Finnish crime, Latin telenovelas, or perhaps Hollywood to Bollywood. And if some of you don't know, there's also Nollywood from Nigeria. There's more to come of the world coming into the content opportunities for consumers. And in fact, how do we make sure that we meet the needs of consumers? Well, it's much like trying to build the perfect car that everybody can drive. You need to service a lot of diverse needs, with more than 4 in 10 saying, I actually am not concerned whether it's Canadian content, I just want it to be good. A further 4 in 10 saying, well, actually, I want to see more Canadian content. And actually, the biggest number of all is, I love the fact that I can see shows and movies from all over the world. And for example, on Roku, we have over 15,000 channel apps that are accessed on the platform, including English, French, and other language content. So what's happening though in the brains of of everyday modern consumers? Well, in fact, there's a massive amount of tension. And what we're seeing is 95% of consumers have at least one modern day tension that they're dealing with. And since COVID, it's actually increased, with 47% saying it's more, I'm feeling more anxious from COVID than before COVID. These are the types of things that people are really anxious about. And what this means is how people are feeling, how COVID has impacted on behaviors, changes in streaming. The real impact is the majority of people are saying they have less disposable income. They are buying more things online. In fact, streamers are 2 times more likely to be buying online. And over 1 in 4 are actually saying all of these changes are changing the brands that they're shopping with. That has a direct impact on all of you. But listen, Warren Buffett says we can predict rain, but it doesn't count if we're not building the arcs. So what are consumers doing and what is their resolution? Well, it's actually they're building arcs with TV. And we're going to come on and talk about the mindset of what streaming TV gives. In fact, smart TVs are the screen of choice, and it's continuing to grow from 72% of people saying they had a smart TV to now 75% in 2022. And what we know is that majority of streamers are really, we ask them, what is the difference on why you would use all these different screens between smart TV, TV on your mobile, or streaming TV on your PC and laptop? And what you can see is across all of these different need states, the TV is the biggest and most important in terms of meeting need states. And specifically with escape, having family viewing time, traditions and rituals. In fact, family viewing time, it's 3 times biggest the next best option of a TV on your PC or laptop. And in fact, 12 out of 16 of these needs is met by the TV. And for the next closest one, it's none of these screens. There's a massive divide you can see in that actually no other screen will do in meeting these needs. The one real exception is learning about new brands and products. And that's where TV really has a little pip. And we're going to come on to talk about how important mobile is in the mix between TV and mobile, both in my presentation and also I think in Dr. Grace on actions. So just to give you some idea of like, there's a lot of change. Obviously, working with companies like Roku, we're trying to say, don't worry about the stress of all these different VOD states and the flexi VODs. We've got that covered. We can help you meet your audience, but we can't necessarily help you with the mindsets. All we can do is expose them. 49% of TV streamers are worried about recession in the next few years. So what I've done is I've profiled them for you. And the ones that are actually resilient, 51% are worried, 49% are not worried. And unsurprisingly, the ones that are not worried, they're under 24s. In fact, for every 2 people under 24 not worried about being a recession, they're recession resilient, there's 1 person who's worried. They're more likely to be single. Interesting, they're not everyday TV users. I'll come on to explain why. They tend to live in the suburbs of town of about 50 to 100,000 people in Canada. And interestingly, the East Coast people are more recession resilient than West Coast. And I'm from Vancouver, Canada, and I think maybe perhaps cost of living has a big effect as well as the types of population demographics in those areas. So what do we know about these recession resilient TV streamers that you want to advertise to? Well, the reason why they're not watching TV every day is because they're big bingers. They like to binge on the newest shows. They absolutely love sports. I think we all can probably, I've got a son, he kind of looks like this. They're very big into free streaming. In fact, they think it's a better advertising experience, probably because of the payload of ads and as well the technologies to have better seamless experience between ad and content is growing and improving every day. They've canceled their cable. And what is very important is as much as we're building out the targeting solutions to target them, they're actually saying, please, can you just make non-personalized ads when I'm watching my TV? Remember, 3 times the nearest screen they're trying to escape when they're watching TV. But the great news is contextual advertising is thumbs up. So we believe this is a very important future-facing way for your communication strategy for those recession resilient people. They tend to be altruistic. They're a little bit less materialistic, but I think they're still a very important growing audience for all of you on the phone. Okay, so what does this mean for advertiser solutions? Well, what we've done is we've actually asked people, well, how do you interact with ads? And 76% of these streamers have said they actually come back and that they take actions immediately at the moment from what they're seeing when it comes to TV advertising. So whether they're searching, visiting branded websites, the reason why I highlighted map search and taking a photo of an ad or a video of an ad on TV is because as marketers, this is a really great indication you've done something right. But the bad news is I think we're actually probably undercounting the impact television has on your ability to convert people further down the funnel into sales. And Dr. Grace will come on specifically to talk about what are the key metrics that she can use in econometrics to help you understand the effectiveness of your media plans. The good news is, where is it all going? Because as I said, we asked a lot of questions of what have you ever done in the past, but what would you consider doing in the future? And 21% of consumers who are TV streamers in Canada said they would consider using a TV QR code in future. Why I highlighted this is because there are actually more people who are interested in using this than have ever actually used it. So if the communication is spot on and you're really hitting the moment with the right message, we know our 4 Ps, 5 Ps, 7 Ps, product, price, place, promotion. This is where there's going to be growth in the next sort of 12 to 18 months, with consumer also having appetite. So here's an example. This is an ad that ran on Roku. You can see the ad. It's a television commercial that you stream, and oftentimes it's also running in linear. And the beauty of streaming TV is you can have this engage element with what we call engage real streamers, where with their mobile phone or with their device, they can actually go deeper into the messaging. And this helps marketers because it's a direct deeper funnel, potentially into the sales funnel. So some brands will use it to do direct conversion, some for more information. This one is to open an account. Another example might be, for example, email further information. So in the Roku environment, we actually, when you register your device, you are often registering it with your mobile phone. It's a first-party registration. So we have this symbiotic relationship between someone's mobile and their TV set, where these two devices can speak to each other very, very quickly so that the information transfer can happen. And that's really great for brands, because what you don't want to do, particularly if you've got a complex product, and Dr. Grace will touch on this, is that you don't want to leak your opportunity from your amazing communications to a competitor or to somewhere else. And these are the emerging ways. T-commerce, certainly in the USA, we've started partnerships with major retailers to try and understand more around shoppable media. If you haven't heard, come back to us and we can give you some more information on what's coming up. But these are the early indications in Canada on what's available today. So where is this all going? This is all going to moment marketing. So obviously you've got your standard ads. There's a lot more you can do beyond 30-second spots. And what we're seeing in the market is, for example, here's a great article on the left-hand side. Moment marketing is on the rise. What is this? Moment marketing is not new, but what is new is the level of sophistication in the technologies to enable inserting right item, right time, right place, whether this be product placement in the future that can be done dynamically inserted, or for example, the types of ads that you're making, because the sophistication you have as a brand in your digital asset management system, coupled with artificial intelligence and with really deep metadata. In fact, this is the most important point, is metadata. With that level of organization of your materials, you can potentially slot it into streaming TV with the right kind of ad at the right time and the right kind of contextual addressable moment. And so what we can see, this is an example I've given you. I'm going to come on to show you the way that consumers interact with entertainment overall, because media adjacency is really what this is all about, as well as finding the right audience. For example, Vans, there was one store that saw a 7,800% rise in sales of their white slip-on shoes because they were worn in Squid Game. And we just released the movie Weird Al, the Yankovic story, starring Daniel Radcliffe. It opened up TIFF in Canada. We're really excited about that. And we also had a partnership with Vans where there are custom Weird Al Vans that have been made. We know that consumers in Canada, 17% buy limited edition goods specifically related to entertainment. And in fact, we ask consumers all different kinds of ways that they love to engage with shows, film, entertainment franchises. Some brands might be looking for fame building opportunities. You want more than a 30-second spot. You may want to co-produce and have your own assets as part of the production. This is the way that certainly is available, and the way Roku is also looking at, you know, the future of media and how do we better have co-branded solutions with brands when it comes to our own originals and productions. You can see 31% buy clothing. I did ask, 12% of Canadians are walking around with tattoos tied to their most favorite shows, film, and entertainment. I actually did a search myself. There's some amazing Superman Canadian branded tattoos on people. And then just to temper people, because I know marketers love shiny new toys, think of it this way. Canadians are 3 times more likely to have a tattoo related to entertainment than they are to buy an NFT related to entertainment. Obviously, one is worth more money, but perhaps the other is more iconic and meaningful. So where does this all leading to? It's leading into actually automatic content recognition as the future. We have automatic content recognition at Roku, and this is actually, according to WARC, one of the biggest trade, not trade bodies, but commercial publications. It's a sister publication to Cannes Lions. They house the most prolific marketing effectiveness stories all over the world. And what they have published is that moment marketing is on the rise. This ability for both the advertiser to have agility, for there to be a strong sophistication of the codifying of what is being put on a screen. So whether it's live, on demand, catch up, even eventually through gaming consoles, this ability to take the sound from the screen, encode all of that material with metadata, show, talent, genre, and this is why I said subtitles is very important. Subtitles is also another way to get metadata about what is being viewed. All of this can create this amazing opportunity for contextual advertising. For a marketer, what does that mean? It means the ability to potentially reach the underexposed, so that long tail of incremental reach that you need. So, for example, you may be advertising on have a linear campaign, take that information and flip it, and finding the long tail of these elusive streamers. Like I said, this resilient, recession-proof streamers, we can potentially help you find them. It might be that there's underexposure, not enough frequency, or you might even have a campaign where you're looking for all exposure. And if you're a brand like a beauty brand with like 40 different brands underneath your portfolio, your diversified portfolio, you need to find extremely creative ways to have clean partitions between each one of your brands, because as we go into recession, you don't want your own portfolio to cannibalize as people may be trading down, let alone trading to a competitor. So we believe moment marketing is where it's going to be going. We'll be talking more about this. What are the kinds of great assets specifically in Canada that Canadian streamers absolutely love engaging with beyond the show? These were the biggest names and brands that they said. And what's really interesting is there's some great Canadian titles coming up in here as well. So when you think moment marketing and your adjacency to some of the most important media assets in the world, these are the ones that were important to Canadians. So moving on from that, just to wrap up, and I'll be moving over to Dr. Grace, a quick summary. There were 76% of streamers in Canada, 24% were non-streamers. 4 in 10 are only streaming with no cable. This is up from 3 in 10 in 2021. Nearly half say these rise of the flexi VODs, they're considering doing lots of changes to their services because the business models are also changing. That's causing this disruption. Roughly 5 hours, though, a week is spending with ad-supported streaming TV. And that means don't worry about the chaos. Focus on the opportunity with brands like Roku and also the broadcasters. These are we're all part of the same ecosystem here to help you achieve your goals. Foreign language viewing is up. People are taking actions from ads, which Dr. Grace will focus on. 58% engage with programs beyond the TV show, including 12% getting tattoos. You might be one of them on the call right now with us. Moment marketing Technically, the capabilities are growing. Automatic content recognition is fueling this. But throughout all of this, as much as we have the pipes and the technology in place, we know you're marketers, you're about messaging. You need to be mindful about going into the next 2023, because there's a lot of modern day tensions that consumers are facing. And this big screen, living screen TV, if you're used to being a digital brand, you really have to be mindful of your message. So that's the wrap on VOD Evolutions. I'm now, just to let you know, the research will be available in 3 weeks, the third week of January. We've got a few more events coming up. You were the exclusive launch event. There will be a recording of this session, so I hope you took some screenshots perhaps. But if you click on this QR code, take a photo, because we believe in multi-screening, register with us, and we will be releasing a white paper the third week of January. So this is the QR code to get access. This is just for the white paper only. I'm a classically trained researcher and a member of ISAMAR regulated. We will just be using this to send you the white paper, and there's so much more to come. So now I'm going to stop and sharing, and we are now going to move over to Dr. Grace Kite, who is the founder and econometrician of Magic Numbers. I'm so excited. I actually told her I was a fangirl stalking her since early this year. She's done amazing work, both in the UK and Canada, on helping brands understand how to explain to the board and to the C-suite why TV should be on the plan. She's going to walk you through some amazing case studies, but not only that, I'm based in the UK. She's based in the UK. Every single award ceremony I've gone to, she has won. So Dr. Grace, I know I hope I haven't bigged you up too much. It's now over to you.
Hello, yes, I'm really pleased to be here today. Thanks, Laura. That was a really fascinating set of research there. And I hope you all took out loads of really interesting stats and pieces of advice there from Laura on how to plan your campaigns going forward into 2023, because I thought there was some really actionable stuff there. What I'm going to talk about actually is that once you've done your campaigns, what kinds of results do you think you can see? We're really going to focus on e-commerce brands, and you know, we at Magic Numbers work with e-commerce businesses quite a lot, and we're sort of joining the dots between the different types of research, identifying the numbers that are going to make the biggest impact on their growth, and you know, working with them to get their media plans shipshape. And what we've seen actually over recent years is that these businesses, they're not small anymore, but despite that, many of them don't always feel comfortable with the sort of big brand marketing strategies like going on TV. And it's a shame, right? Because at the moment, a lot of e-commerce businesses have money to spend. They've had a good couple of years in the pandemic, and they're thinking big. So we wanted to look at that particular, episode of where online businesses are starting to do TV for the first time, The research I'm going to share with you today is the result of two studies that we at Magic Numbers did. The first one in collaboration with ThinkBox in the UK, and the second with Think TV here over in Canada, where you guys are. And in each of those they were two quite meaty projects. So the first one, we did 10 interviews with CMOs, marketing directors and experts. We did econometric analysis to analyze the effects of TV in over 20 online businesses, 10 in the UK and 10 in Canada. And then we cross-referenced with other research. So we weaved all of those findings together and looked at where the interviews and the modeling matched, and you brought in other research to help to explain. For those of you that don't know, econometrics is actually the gold standard way to evaluate TV advertising, both for linear TV and for streaming TV. And the reason is because it doesn't rely on tracking. So it doesn't rely on people having to click on the ad. And actually, that's not how people respond to TV when they're watching it in their living room. They maybe go and look on their phone, or they respond in a different way. So econometrics doesn't rely on tracking, and that's why it's the right way to go. Okay, And we did all that analysis, and we went through everything that was said in the interviews, and we came up with 4 sets of learnings about when and how online born and e-commerce brands successfully use TV. So what you're going to see is a mix of the modelling and the interviewing findings, and it's actually because when we put these things together, there was a lot of the 2 sets of findings matched. Mostly what people said in the interviews was actually verified in the modelling. We're going to see first of all, these 3 sections here. So first of all, the when's the right time? When's the right time in the life of an online business to go onto TV? And we're going to see examples of when that should be, and case studies of it actually working at those moments. And then we're going to say what happens when you do TV in terms of outcomes on your website, and also a bit about what happens in the search environment. And then finally, we're going to give you a bit of a plan of action, so some tips to what to do in your next TV campaign. So first off, when's the right time if you're an online business to start using TV? So the first is when you need to scale up fast, because a new category has opened up and you need to set yourself up as the #1 brand in this space. And it might be because there are network effects, like you might have a product that works better if lots of other people are using it, so you need to scale quickly. And eBay is a classic example of this. But it might also just be because you want your brand to be synonymous with this new category. We don't say get a rideshare home, we say let's get an Uber. And that's because Uber scaled fast and first. So if you're an online business, TV is a really good thing to use at that point. So, as Chris Siegel here, who's a director from HelloFresh in the US, at HelloFresh, we were spending a significant amount of our US marketing budget on TV every month because the category was early stage and we had well-funded competitors. And here's an example, a case study from one of those brands currently sort of disrupting the second-hand cars category in the UK. This is a chart that comes out of econometric modelling, and along the x-axis you have got time. The pink line is weekly visits to this brand's website, and then underneath the pink line is a breakdown of what drove those visits. The dark blue is search in this one, yellow is TV, and orange is when TV and search worked really well together. And then, the grey is other things like drivers like the weather or the pandemic or the economy. And it's clear, what this brand did. Look, you can see they first off did some test and learn with TV, and then they scaled up. And it was when they scaled that their website visits really took off. And they spent quite a lot of money, this brand, but they got to 500,000 visits every week within 5 months. So that's a huge scale up, driven by TV, the yellow here, and TV working together with search in the orange. Okay, so second reason, second time that's a good time to start using TV, and when TV works really well for online businesses, is when your product is clever or just difficult to understand. And it can be related to that situation we were just talking about, because it often happens if your business is driving the disruption of a category. So if it's introducing a new or better or unusual, unexpected way of doing things. But it doesn't have to be digital disruption of a category. Maybe your product is better because it has an online community or a better algorithm or something that you have to explain the benefits of, and it could be quite techy. And this quote was part, that also came from Kazoo, who are also secondhand cars brand, beginning to sell online. And he said that people will come to Kazoo's website and their first question was, where's the shop? Where's the dealership? How do I go and see this car? And people didn't understand that actually you don't do that if you're buying a car online. And there are some people out there that who think you'd have to be mad to buy a secondhand car online without seeing it. And what Lucas said was it's not worth doing marketing that brings those people to his website. They're never going to buy from Kazoo. Because with Kazoo, seeing the car in real life isn't an option. But what he said TV is able to do, in his experience better than other media channels, is explain that there's no dealership. but also reassure prospective customers that cars are checked, refurbished and delivered with care. And you can see his exact words there on the slide. You know, unless you land 2 or 3 points that explain our product, you're not really going to get people to come to the website with the right level of intent in the first place. And it's hard to deliver those 3 messages outside of TV, he says. And you know, we saw evidence within the project that, just as Lucas said, TV does bring people with the right level of intent to websites, and that means it brings people who have already understood the proposition and are ready to buy. Now, one way to measure the level of intent if you're an online business is to look at the website conversion rate. So that's the proportion of all visitors that then bought something. And one of our interviewees actually shared her company's private data on conversion rates. And this chart plots that conversion rate on the y-axis against TV impacts per week on the x-axis. So what you can see is that in the weeks when there were more TV ads and more people watching TV, conversion on the website was higher. So TV bringing people who were on average less likely to bounce and more likely to go all the way through to that confirm payment button. And the third sign that you're ready for TV if you're an online business is this. It's when your normal marketing mix, that typically search and social, something that you've grown up with, just doesn't seem to be working anymore. And this quote is from a media professional in the UK who's worked with lots of e-commerce brands that have reached this stage. And what happens, he says, is, look, your CPC goes up significantly. So your cost per engagement is going up significantly, and you're getting over what your target CPA is. And often that's the point where the business acknowledges you need to start doing offline advertising, like TV, for example. And this is like a really very typical stage in the life of an online business, so much so that Tom Roach and I made this ramp and bump chart here to describe it. And this chart has time along the x-axis and sales from advertising plotted on the y-axis. And during the left-hand side of the chart is when the business is young and the growth is coming from scaling up that online marketing, mainly paid search and social. And this is a good way to get growth when you're a young online business, because it's cheap and it's easy to control and it can drive growth for a long time, you know, often several years. And what's going on is that in the ramp period, there are always a number of potential customers researching or shopping online, and they're in the market and they're not loyal to a competitor. So if you've got a reasonably strong product offer and a well-targeted message, you can convert them to a sale like really cheaply. But what happens as online business continues to be successful and continues to grow, we get to the middle of this chart. And what's going on is that growth starts to stall, and these traditional tactics, online search and social, the online, always on online ads, just don't seem to be working anymore. And the business has reached what we call the no more efficient buys plateau, or the performance plateau. And you can see, you know, what's happening is that growth has stalled, and you're seeing that you try and spend another £50,000 of dollars, and it just doesn't move the needle. You don't get sales for it anymore. So what you need to do is tackle it with the solution on the right hand side of this chart. You need to reach people who aren't in the market right now and stay in their minds until they are, or you need to convince people who currently prefer a competitor. You know, in short, you need wider reach, you need richer creative, you need attention holding media channels like TV, for example. And what happens when businesses go for this is that you see there's not only a direct effect, which is here in the yellow, but there's also a synergy where suddenly there's this increased effectiveness of performance marketing too, and we're finally breaking through the plateau. And this is an example of exactly that pattern from our modelling. This dieting business had a period of growth using online channels only, but then reached a plateau. And then when they went on TV, they saw that direct effect, but they also saw a better response to search, and growth takes off again. Okay, and then the fourth trigger for using TV can be a mature understanding of how search engine marketing works, something that may not always be in place. And this is a quote from our Canadian interviewing. the people making the decisions about brand campaigns and brand building are quite far away from the understanding that e-commerce people have on the limits of that ROAS figure in the Google dashboard that looks so simple and so clear. And what's happening is that without that mature understanding, marketers may not always be using search engine marketing appropriately. They might use the ROAS figures in the dashboards to make decisions that really require different decision tools. And the reason is that, you know, online ads perform two separate tasks, and the figures in the dashboards are only useful for one of those tasks. And the two tasks are making your product available online and just being there at the right time, and actually generating new demand that wasn't going to come anyway. And sometimes marketers can misunderstand which one they're measuring with those figures in the dashboard. And what happens is marketers realize this, and they often realize that there is wastage in the search budget. And so they try switch off tests, and that releases money for TV. And just to make that really super clear, I wanted to show you this data from a study that was done in the UK. You know, what this shows is the extent and direction of the mistake that's made in the dashboards or in the last click dashboards that Google produce alongside search engine marketing. So what's happening is that the last click estimates will always hugely underestimate the impact of TV and overestimate the impact of lower funnel activity, especially paid search. And, you know, that means that platforms calculate ROAS figures for paid search that are too high and cost per acquisition for paid search that are too cheap. And people tend to then believe that, sometimes wrongly, that if they were switching off sometimes some types of paid search, it would be disastrous. But actually, a lot of marketers go on this journey. Perhaps they use econometrics and understand the errors that are being made in the last click environment, and they do these switch off tests and actually reallocate money back from paid search into TV. And that's a good move. So there you have it. There's the signs that it's time for an online business to begin experimenting with TV. You need to scale first and fast. You've got a clever new product. You run out of efficient performance marketing buyers and need to look elsewhere, or you've reduced wastage in your paid search after understanding last click better. And in this next section, I want to talk to you about what happens when you do go on air with a successful TV campaign. And here's a quote from the interviewing. We've got an amazing video of the founder shooting his web analytics platform the night that they ran their first TV spot. And he's with his family looking at the counter on GA, Google Analytics, and saying, yeah, this many people on site. And you can hear him and his family, they're cheering. Here's another one. I've got a video somewhere of where we're all geeking out because of having the TV on, watching the Google Analytics and just going nuts. As the spot ran, we saw a huge surge in traffic and conversions. Seeing visits shoot up, flow through our site and convert remains as exciting as the day we launched. That excitement doesn't and shouldn't go away. So you can picture it, can't you? The teams clustering around the screen and just watching the excitement of movement on the website when TV advertising goes on air. And it's clear in the data too that those surges that the interviewees were talking about. In this example, it's a big spending unknown brand at launch. And what we're looking at here in the pink is website visits, and in the blue, TV impacts. And it's just so clear the minute they go on TV and start spending money, whoosh, up go the website visits. Here's another one. And actually, this is a financial services brand with a much more modest spend, and their TV activity was happening after that brand was already up and running, so not at launch, and they're not spending anywhere near as much as on TV as we saw on the slide before. This is £3.4 million over 3 years, but it's still really clear. Look, when the TV is on, website visits respond. And TV can even bring a visible and immediate change that lasts. This is an example from the Canadian study where this brand had a great creative and the business actually saw a step change after the TV. The website visits went up during the campaign and stayed up. And we heard stories like this in the interviewing as well. So this is a growth marketer in Canada. During the campaign, leads were up 60% versus the previous year. Now, several months later, we're up at 36% still, and we expect it to level out at plus 25%. So that's another example of that sort of step change after being on TV, that of continued interest in an ongoing way. And look, in both countries, taking the 10 brands together, this is what came out of the modelling. TV was a major source of traffic, contributing 30 to 40% of website visits. And you know, this is partly because we did pick businesses that were doing TV and seeing good results. So what you're going to see coming up is actually what can happen if TV is done well. But you know, there's a really strong impact in terms of the website visits in both Canada and the US here. And what we were able to also do is do a value for money calculation for TV in driving website visits, and benchmark that against other against the other media channels in the study. And here's the calculation for the UK. And what you can see on the left actually is that these brands spent what they spent on the different media channels, and they spent quite a lot on TV. In the middle, we see what's coming out of the modelling, which is the amount of website visits driven by the different channels. And you can see, again, quite a lot of visits being driven by TV. So that was the biggest scale. And then when we divide one by the other, you get the cost per visit. And actually, of the three different media channels there, TV was the cheapest on a cost per visit basis, as well as being able to drive the most, the biggest effect. And actually, we saw something very similar in Canada. So this is now comparing TV to outdoor and display and online video, which were the channels that were really live during the period we looked at, which was COVID in Canada. And again, you can see here that TV by far the best value for money on the right hand side, and by far driving the most website visits in the middle. So what you get with TV, if you're an online brand, is you get reach and you get a scale of effect, but you get it at good value for money price. Now, we called this section instant gratification and some, and that's because as well as the immediate effect of TV, which we started this section with, TV does have a long-lasting effect. And this chart shows when you see the website visits driven by different media channels in terms of the number of weeks after airing. So the number of weeks it takes to see the first 50% of the effect is in bright colours, and the number of weeks it takes to see the rest in a lighter shade. And look, it's clear, isn't it, that outdoor and brand TV, that's TV using rich creative, usually airing in peak slots, have a long-lasting effect. So they're capable of brand building. And both of those two channels continue to drive visits until 2 years after airing. And so that's really in sharp contrast to search and social, which have all of their effects straight away and don't last. And in the interviewing, people mentioned lots of different benefits of brand building. Many of them have been covered in lots of detail elsewhere. But, you know, I wanted to highlight two, and one is that if you have this long-term brand building effect of marketing from TV, you know, you can get out of a trap of having to keep pushing money in, of having 60% of sales being driven by marketing. And what you're doing is generating underlying brand awareness, underlying brand strength, this sort of strategic play, a base sales layer to fall back on, a source of stability, of certainty, of something that will endure. And there's another reason too that's relevant for sort of young online businesses, which is that, you know, brand building is important because the brand can be something that you sell. And a lot of the time when you're selling a scale-up business, it's not profitable. So what you aren't selling the future flow of income, you're selling, and often the infrastructure and website could be copied by someone else overnight. So what you're selling often is the brand. And this is most important and obvious for D2C. So for example, Tails.com, which is a pet food direct website in the UK, was recently bought by Nestle. And when you think about it, what is it they were buying? You know, it's the brand. So they weren't thinking, great, they've got infrastructure to make dog and cat food. They've got that already. They were thinking, let's buy the brand and let's buy the customer base. So again, that long-term effect is something that you can bank on. It's something that endures, and it's something that for these smaller brands, they could even sell when the business is ready to float. So there you have it. There's the three conclusions about what happens when you go on TV. So instant gratification, an immediate response visible in the dashboards, and then a big effect at a lower cost per visit than other offline channels. And you can expect around £2 per visit, or $2 per visit, and a layer of base sales to rely on if you ever need to switch off your performance marketing, plus a brand that's a scalable asset. Now, I have three tips now for your next campaign. So what do you do if you're an e-commerce business and you want to start using TV? Well, look, one of the decisions that you need to make is whether you're going to target reach or whether you're going to target low-cost visits. That's shown here on the x-axis, and that depends on you know, whether you're so that's what one decision you need to make, and another decision you need to make is whether your brand is going to be whether your ad is going to be brand focused or response focused. And I want to argue that actually which ones of these you should choose depends very much on what your product is that you're trying to sell and when your target audience is at home. So if you have a clear proposition, a low ticket price, a short purchase cycle, and not very much competition, you know, you can target low cost visits by using cheap slots on TV, and you can use a response focused ad. But if you're disrupting the category, or you need to explain your product, or you need to scale fast, you can target reach, but you can have a response focused ad. You don't really need to convince people, you just need to explain. And then if you're in a category where business competition is fierce, or if your product has a high ticket price, maybe it's a sofa or a holiday, you know, something like a long purchase cycle or a mature product category, now it's a harder sell, and you should be targeting reach and using a brand focused ad. So getting the right sort of TV usage in place is really, really important. Another thing you should always do is make sure you're visible in the search environment. When we're on TV, a lot of people will Google our brands, so search becomes even more elevated in importance. We need to make sure that ultimately people come to our site and not get diverted elsewhere. So yes, we will spend a bit on search, and it will cost us a bit more when we run TV. And this is a piece of advice that came through all of the interviewing we did on both sides of the pond. So make sure your search environment is optimized when you do your campaigns. And finally, put the right measurement tools in place. The effect of TV is an ambiguous and difficult story to tell. It's very, very hard, according to this one marketer. And what I want to leave you with here is just some thoughts about the right types of measurement to use when you're evaluating your TV. And there in the top right, econometrics from a reputable provider would be my #1 choice. You can also do one region or one city blitz versus and compare to a control region. And it's also useful to understand demand in detail using search data before you air. There are some other things here on this slide which marketers will use, and they are part of the toolkit, but it's just worth being careful with some of them. Because, for example, if you look for an immediate effect, like a bump in your sales, you might not see it for TV because other things might be going on at the same time. And it's only with econometrics, the type of method that we've just been seeing, that you'll be able to disentangle other things that are going on. And there are also a range of other things. So automated quick and dirty market mix modeling can be very misleading. Platform or media owner analysis, helpful, but you know that they sometimes do have an agenda, and there are a range of things just to be aware of with those other ones in the dark blue, worth using, but just use them with care. And my recommendation would be to use econometrics from a reputable provider. So here you go, there's my summary. Adjust your TV strategy to your product characteristics and current context. keep brand search engine marketing on and performance marketing on while you're on TV to harvest the demand, and ensure you put the right measurement tools in place to understand what's worked. And on that note, if anybody that's listening here is interested to partner with Magic Numbers and Roku to look at how your own streaming TV activity has worked, we are seeking brands to partner with and would love to hear from you. So another lovely QR code here, or you can also get in touch with either me or Laura Chabey on LinkedIn or and we'll be very grateful to hear from you. I shall stop there and hand back to Lucy.
Thank you so much, Dr. Grace. Wow, some amazing insights there. Same with Laura on the research. That was fabulous. Just a reminder to everybody that we are now going to move into our Q&A sessions. So don't forget there's a Q&A prompt at the bottom of your screen, so keep those coming. So let's jump right into it. We're running a bit behind, so let's get right into our panel discussion. If everybody could please come on screen, and also welcome Nick Drew from Fuse Insights, will moderate this panel with some of our panel, with all of our panelists. We have a great lineup of big hitters here. So we have Dr. Grace coming back, Laura coming back on screen. Thank you very much. Laura Bear from Think TV Canada, and Robin Legasic from Cairns O'Neill. So Drew, you've got your panel. I think they're all ready to go, and I'll leave it over to you.
Thank you very much, Lucy. Hello, everyone. Pleasure to be introduced to you all and part of this event and this panel discussion today. As Lucy said, you've obviously already heard from Laura Chabey and Dr. Grace. In addition, we have two more expert panelists, Robin Legasic, Managing Director of the strategic media agency Cairns O'Neill. Robin has been in the media and advertising business for more than 20 years on both the agency side and the client side. And when she's not working, among other things, she focuses on supporting her two kids in their competitive gymnastics. We also have Laura Bear, Vice President of Marketing for Think TV, which is the industry body responsible for advancing commercial TV in the Canadian marketing ecosystem. Before joining Think TV, Laura spent 16 years at Chorus Entertainment. She is also, she loves watching TV. One of her claims to fame is that while at Saturday Night Live show, watching the broadcast, Eddie Murphy waved to her while dressed as a baby, which I think we can all agree is quite the claim to fame. So welcome, Robin and Laura. Thank you both for joining us. My first question is actually to both of you. So thinking about the research and the presentations that we've seen, I think it's fair to say that we're all probably quite familiar with the overarching narrative about the growth of streaming, the idea that streaming is present in more and more households year on year, and that it accounts for more viewing time. So looking beyond those sort of well-established beats, what jumped out at you from the research as being perhaps the most important insights for marketers and brands? Robin, do you want to start?
Sure, thank you. So I think there's two areas that are very important to focus on that came out in themes in the presentations. And the first is about fragmentation. And it is increasing in all environments and also in video. It can make reaching those audiences a little bit more challenging. However, it does create areas as an industry that we can focus on to help overcome those challenges. One of those being a total video strategy. So thinking about it not as an or, but as an and. Linear TV and VOD TV or streaming television. And also heightens the need for an integrated and connected measurement framework and platform that can be used in the planning and post-campaign media metrics. And that's something that the industry needs to band together on. The other area that's connected and is an important piece with that increased fragmentation is that video continues to be a key component of marketing plans to generate the reach and awareness that's required with consumers. And we saw that in Dr. Grace's information and data as well, that it allows brands to build that awareness quickly, and not just awareness, but also unlock really great results in the performance metrics.
Excellent, thank you. And Laura, was there anything that particularly jumped out at you from the two presentations?
Well, I mean, we're not surprised by the magic numbers research that Grace produced, which is a great report and is a little longer if you're interested in looking into it. Because I think the important thing there is that people are watching a lot of TV, and that's why it works. So I think, you know, putting things in perspective is important. And Canadians are still spending twice as much time on linear TV as they are on the pure play streaming services. That said, as Robin has pointed out, fragmentation is increasing. And that's where streaming comes in, and it's a priority for the broadcasters as it is for anybody in video, you know, and you can see more of it with, you know, through the apps and on demand and Stack TV and CBC Gem and the CTV app and so on. I think what's maybe surprising is the access numbers that Laura shared, you know, 30%, 30 to 33% accessing VOD, depending on which chart you were looking at. And I think 2023 is the year where that really explodes. Viewers need to find it and get used to using it. And I think we'll see the inventory in CTV, specifically in VOD, just explode over the next year.
Okay, thank you. Focusing in particular on the magic numbers research that you were talking us through, Dr. Grace, I wanted to ask you about that in a little more detail. Personally, my own bias is that I'm always fascinated to see research that includes other markets alongside Canada, because it can give us that great context of which dynamics are unique to Canada, and then where Canadian trends are mirroring things that we've seen elsewhere in the world. So in your research that, you know, some of which you've talked us through, what differences did you see between the UK and Canada? And what are the implications of those differences for brands and for marketers thinking about TV?
Yeah, good question. And what I found most surprising actually was that there is a lot of commonality between what marketers in the UK and in Canada were experiencing. And I think partly that is because when you're focusing on e-commerce businesses, many of them are accessing the same platforms from Google and Facebook, and all of those things are the same the world over. So they're thinking about TV in the same kind of ways as one another, because they've grown up in that kind of way, that sort of test and learn approach, and that focus on cost per acquisition and cost per visits and things like that is very much the same on both sides of the pond if you talk to online first marketers. You know, obviously the Canadian market had some really interesting color around the different regions and the different languages, and that's less of a feature in the UK. So that was one of the big differences.
Okay, thank you. Changing tack, from the research that Laura presented, one of her big focuses was on this idea of modern tensions, and the fact that perhaps over the last 2 years, we've seen some long-term shifts in Canadians' daily worries and their anxieties. Robin, with your brand marketing background, I was curious to know and wanted to kind of get your thoughts on this, of how brands see these tensions or anxieties amongst Canadians, and how perhaps they should incorporate them into their marketing thinking.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's a very important piece of information, important piece of research for brands to think about and look at. We know that in uncertain times, in order for brands to continue to win, they need to support advertising, and specifically awareness advertising. We've seen countless studies over the years that support this, and yet it's often the first budget line that gets cut. And as Dr. Grace also presented in her information, it's the source of stability for your brand and your base layer of sales. So it's really important to be steady and hold the course. That said, advertisers and brands need to understand what's going to resonate in certain times and not be tone deaf. And so it's really important that marketers are paying attention to how consumers are feeling and what their perception is. And thinking about how they can stay connected and maintain and continue to build trust with those consumers. You know, the VOD environment as well is a source of a lot of data and information, and can allow for much better, faster A/B testing, measurement, connection to the overall consumer that can then find greater insights that can inform those linear executions as well. So thinking about it in that holistic connected environment is really important.
Okay, thank you. And Laura C, did you have any additional thoughts on that? You know, coming
Yeah,
out of
obviously
the
I
research?
presented about the recession resilient, and actually I wasn't going to present on recession, but obviously the news is turning to such a point. I was like, this is what I really think marketers need to hear as they're going down into the holiday season. Some time off, clear your head, because come on, come January 2023, we've got a lot of soul searching to do about how we're going to approach. Listen, I've been made redundant as a marketer. I'm a qualified marketer from the Chartered Institute of Marketing. I've had it happen twice. I know what it feels like. We're trying to present these research findings to you because we want to help you get through the next 12 to 18 months. What was really interesting actually is the people who are recession stressed, they're more likely to be West Coast than East Coast. And disproportionately, there was a higher indexing in amongst the Asian Canadian communities. And I think there was this one number, I don't know if you saw, where it was like the people who are stressed about recession, they have over 10 things in their life that they're stressed about, compared to people who are not worried about the recession and the recession resilient. They only have 4 things that they're worried about. And they had completely different kind of divides about what they care about. And so those recession resilience, as I said, they're young, single, they're in small towns. They're like, okay, it's not really affecting me, but they actually have really big altruistic dreams. They care about global stability. They're like, what's going on with food, water? Let's look, the West Coast, I'm from Vancouver, the entire Fraser Valley flooded in the last 18 months. This has never happened in my life. Climate change, these big macro topics that actually are becoming way more important because it's hitting people in their backyards. They're living it. They're not even thinking it. They're living it. And what was also interesting is those people who are recession concerned, they actually are relatively affluent, and it's much more about the perception of the worry on the impact of their quality of life coming from a very high base. But also there are types of individuals that have a lot of other people dependent on them. So whether it be their kids, their extended family that are overseas, we really have to be mindful with our communication strategies of what's going on in the context of their everyday living and how we're trying to communicate them to help them solve their problems. And I think with this research, we really covered that.
Excellent, thank you. Moving back to TV now, and Dr. Grace's presentation highlighted a few scenarios in which brands will find it valuable to add TV into their marketing mix. So there was when a brand needs to scale rapidly in a competitive space, if it's got a new product to promote, and or if it's maxed out its efficient digital marketing buys. Laura B, in your experience, would you say that that looks the same for streaming? Or are there different brand scenarios or different points in a brand's lifetime at which streaming can or should be added into a brand's marketing mix?
Well, I think there are 2 ways to look at it. You know, TV is great for online businesses because it adds that reach that you don't necessarily get, that broad reach and mass market kind of appeal. And that's where streaming works for a broad advertiser. It adds that reach for the harder to reach demos, and it allows you to go beyond maybe what your current channels are. So streaming is great for almost bigger campaigns. In that perspective, the flip side of that is what streaming provides is addressable campaigns. So it's much more easy for small and mid-sized companies to, you know, to target within their budgets, within their geographical space, and within their target markets. So that's on a smaller scale. That's what streaming can do. So it's really kind of doing the top and tail for every kind of advertiser, I would say.
Okay, thank you. And Dr. Grace, I know what you presented to us was talking about TV more broadly, but were there any additional insights that you have to share on streaming specifically in those scenarios?
I mean, I think
There's a hypothesis.
I mean, I think a bit of punditry maybe. As a pundit, I guess I think streaming's, you know, it's probably the future, really. And one of the things that we see in times of uncertainty, like with the pandemic or with the economy changes that are going to come up, is that changes that are happening slowly in societies or over time, or changes to behavior that are slowly happening, can get accelerated at times of uncertainty. And I mean, I tend to agree with both Laura's that actually, you know, we're going to see movement into streaming quite rapidly in coming years. So you know, it's the future fit way, and future fit marketers are learning how to do it now.
Fabulous, thank you very much. I see that we are approaching the end of the time we have allotted for our discussion, although I know that we could keep this going for quite a lot longer. But I'll take us to our final question for each of you to answer. So the research we've seen today obviously does a great job of showing the current state of play of TV streaming in Canada, both as a consumer medium and as a channel for brands. Looking ahead, I'd love to know from each of you what you expect to see in 2023 and beyond from streaming as it continues to evolve, whether that's positives, whether that's potential challenges that we need to come together to overcome. And shall we start with Laura B?
Well, I think the first thing, and I mentioned it already, is going to be a ton more inventory, and with it, more addressable opportunities for brands. So I think we're going to see that on the consumer side. I hope we see better discoverability. I think that's what we need for viewers to really embrace streaming. They need to know where their shows are. So I think we'll see an evolution in that. And then thirdly, of course, measurement. There's, you know, we have our own in Canada an industry group working on measurement. Cross-media measurement is top of everybody's mind. But so I think we'll see more inventory, better discoverability, and more measurement.
Excellent. Robin?
I'm actually aligned completely with Laura in terms of what I expect to see and what I hope to see. I will add to the measurement. You know, the goal really is a unified measurement system that brings the linear and streaming services together, allowing for much better planning and execution and performance tracking across all the different services. I think that's a really big step and milestone that we have to tackle and uncover. We know that econometric modeling is the gold standard, but we need something to help us in terms of just the planning and execution day to day. So,
thank you. Dr. Grace?
I think we're going to see a lot of econometrics and a lot of market mix modeling coming in to give us ever more confidence about how these how streaming is working, and you know, I think that's really exciting. So that's probably what I'm looking forward to.
Fabulous, thank you. And finally, Laura C.
Yeah, listen, I think every single brand has an ambition, hopefully, to be on a path to fame. So whether you're a brand that's just starting out, you're a mid-sized brand or a mid-sized category, or you're a massive super brand who's on us with the call, I think what we're trying to do is, I'm a measurement expert and a classically trained marketer. I think we've got great solutions in the census level data. So if you're familiar with biddable inventory and action-based advertising, this can be done with streaming TV already today. So come into this space if that's the direction you want to go. I think we also, you know, at the top end with linear, there's a complementarity to linear to help those brands achieve their incremental reach, which is also great. The growth is probably going to be around addressable. I don't necessarily think we have solved for what I call these mid-sized categories. They've got a lot of challenges. So if you're a brand where, like I always say, dandruff shampoo, if you're an air freshener brand, if you're a cleaning product and you're bought like once every 4 months, sometimes these models fail you because your purchase cycle isn't frequent enough, your category is a little bit too small. So the measurement solutions of, you know, TV measurement based on statistics, which is built for major categories, major spend, major brands, you know, you have your solutions and you can do your reach and frequency effective planning. And down at that digital startup end, the census data really helps you with these micro mass optionality, micro investments. I mean, in social, you can start with like as little as $50 versus a $10 million on the other end. It's this middle piece that I actually really hope we can solve. So maybe you're a family-run business, a small to medium-sized enterprise. We need to help you find your way in this ecosystem to find your audiences. And I call this coverage. We need to find 100% coverage to try and help you find your target audiences. And I hope we get better at this.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. And on behalf of the wider audience, I would like to thank Laura, Dr. Grace, Robin, and Laura. I know that we all really appreciate your insights and thoughts in what has been an engrossing discussion. Before I hand back to Lucy for the rest of the session, there is one final poll question for all attendees, which I believe should be in front of you now. But from me, thank you very much.
Thank you, Drew. Sorry, Nick. Sorry, Nick. Great panel discussion, everybody. Thank you so much for that. So amazing. And again, thank you again to Roku for being our presenting sponsor today and bringing us all this amazing research and all these insights. So we are now going to jump into our Q&A session. We don't have too many questions, so let's get right into that right away. Actually, we can see this runs to the poll question. Wow, 67%. So you've made an impact. Fantastic. Good to see. Fantastic. Okay, so the first question that came up today, Laura, I think it might, Laura C, I think it might be directed to you. It came in early. With all the different options of video on demand streaming services, how long do you think before cable TV is a thing of the past? Get your crystal ball out and see if you can.
So listen, I don't think it's an either or. I think it's always an and. I always make jokes about this. I'm like, it's kind of like, do you remember when we had this thing called electricity? And it's like, when do you think candles are going to die? I want to ask you, how many people have candles in their house? Everything has a use case. And what we're seeing is we're seeing technology that's better enabled. And that's a benefit for all concerned. I don't want to have a head-to-head because I don't think it's the right question to ask. I think what we need to do is to think, where are the audiences? What are the right titles, content that they're after, including what's not available even in the Canadian market, and how do we solve for making sure that we can track that and we're not actually getting leakage from piracy or other means. And then how do we ensure we've got the right tools in place to help marketers achieve their goals with reaching those audiences? Now, who knows what that future looks like? I've said it's a flexi VOD, and I think it will continue to be a flexi VOD that we'll support.
Great, thanks. Next question, I think is kind of broad, so maybe anybody can take a chance at this one. What do you think will be the next big trend in VOD streaming?
More flexi VOD, right? I'm happy to answer that. Do you know what I actually think is again, this is a pundit, there's like it's in Laura's personal opinion. I think services will need to come together. I think if you're paid for services, obviously Roku, our services are ad supported, so we're not necessarily asking you to pay for things, but if people have to choose one service over another, I think what will happen is that there will be partnerships formed, because what they want is if they each take a hit, but there's the opportunity cost is low, a bundled option will probably be coming back. So maybe we'll come back full circle right back, and consumers will realize actually bundles are such a bad thing.
And more free apps too, I think. More free channels, more fast channels, more AVOD.
Great, thank you for that. So the other question that came up was, what kind of brands have moved into streaming TV and advertising, mainly digital or mainstream? So I guess the question is, what types of brands or what types of advertisers are actually jumping in and testing the streaming?
Robin, did you want to go first?
I mean, I'm happy to jump in on that. I don't think it's brand specific. All categories across, or all brands across all categories are leveraging the space. It really just depends on the business results, what you're trying to answer for, how you want to go to market and what that strategy is that's going to ladder back up to that. We've seen everything from FI through automotive through to e-commerce brands all across the board. So there's no single one that we've seen.
Okay. And is there, Karen's O'Neill, any of your clients that are doing it, and any success stories that you can share?
We do definitely have clients that are doing it, and we have several success stories and case studies. Typically, we don't release those because of proprietary information on our clients' behalf. But yes, absolutely, a lot of really great use cases, a lot of great success that we're seeing, which is allowing us to continue to recommend that space as we move into 2023 and beyond.
Great. Great. I think there's one more question before we go. Let's see. No, I think we actually have done all the, oh no, there's one question. What is the current best method of measurement without a consistent source?
Listen, I'm happy to take that. Obviously, if you're working with Roku, we have a programmatic platform called OneView. In this platform, if you're used to using other digital platforms, whether it's a Meta or Google, you have the ability to choose your objectives. You have the ability to do scenario planning. You have the ability to do A/B testing, test and control. You could do lots of different like tweaking. I call it almost being like the pilot in an airplane. There's a lot of bells and whistles. You can have a very straightforward, get a campaign live in less than 2 minutes, but equally you could spend 3 to 4 weeks tinkering with, if you're a brand with mass optionality and you want to come in with mass iteration, you can do this. So if you haven't got metrics from other places and you're very digital savvy, this is excellent. We also obviously support brand lift studies. We work with the biggest companies based in Canada to ensure that if you need to do your brand metrics, that is also there. I think over time, though, I'm really excited as well as Laura and Robin to see what the industry is pulling together to solve what I call this messy middle, where the census data and the statistics come together, and we have to solve for that.
Great. Thank you for that. Well, I think we've run out of time, so I think we're gonna wrap it up. Thank you to everybody again for participating in the event today. We will be, to everybody out there, sending out a post-event email with a short survey. Hope you'll take a minute to fill that survey out with some feedback, and of course a recording of today's event. So everybody, please stay well out there. Hope to see you at the next CMA event, and I'll talk soon. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Happy holidays,
Bye.
everybody.
Bye.